Hiya, Martin here. Thanks for joining me for this demonstration live on YouTube this evening. Since the last demonstration last week, we have done a little bit more work here in the workshop, getting ready to move all of my stuff in here. Since I think you last saw it, we've moved our sharpening station over here above the compressor. The demonstration lathe that was here, my old lathe, has now been spun round, so we now have a 5th student lathe in here. We've still got a little bit of work to do on the walls, but the biggest thing is just back here. This area in here is going to be my new domain, or our new domain, for demonstrations and streaming live on YouTube like this. We've brought the little Axminster lathe in so we can demonstrate and teach on it in the interim period until we get my VL 300 excuse me, get my VL 300 in here. Across here are going to be some of the cupboards that I have in my current workshop. The back wall is going to be all nice and decorative, very professional looking, very studio like. There's going to be a little wall here. You can't see it because the stove chimney's in the way, but there's going to be a wall here where I'm going to be having my tools. There'll be a monitor that comes out to about here-ish, I expect, something about there, so I can chat and see what's going on, and you guys can see everything that's happening here. There'll be a second monitor just over there for Natalia to use, or me to use when somebody else is demonstrating on the main lathe here. The camera and stuff, or one of the cameras, is going to be above the spindle, just the same as it is at the moment. Another camera probably about there somewhere, and another one here-ish to look straight down the lathe bed, plus a few other cameras dotted around for alternative views of what's going on. We should hopefully, oh, and we've put some big lights in up there too. Now we should hopefully be in a position to move the lathe hopefully by the end of November. None of this was supposed to happen until, well, the 8th of December or the 9th of December, after our last lesson of the year, but we're doing little bits as and when we possibly can as we get ready for the Harrogate show. And if you are going to the Harrogate show, please do come and find us on Simon Hope's stand. We are demonstrating and selling Hampshire Sheen from the Simon Hope stand. So if you are heading to Harrogate, please do come and say hello. I'll be demonstrating on all 3 days. I do need to put together a timetable of what and when I'll be demonstrating, but we're looking forward to that. But for now, Natalia is in the shed getting ready for, and she's packing up some orders and getting some stock ready for Harrogate, and I'm getting ready for Les Thorne's demonstration, because that's why you're here tonight. You're here to watch Les Thorne and his spindle turning demo. So this is it. We are probably 50% of the way there. Enjoy the demo. See you in a bit. Before we crack on with the demonstration, let's just have a little think about PPE before we get started. When in the workshop, make sure that you are doing everything you possibly can to look after yourself. That includes wearing a full face shield like this one, or at the barest minimum, a pair of safety glasses like these. Or for the best protection, you could wear a full face shield and respirator setup like this one, but make sure the batteries are charged before you start. When you're sanding, make sure you are wearing a suitable dust mask or a half mask like this, or one of the powered respirators, and you have your extraction running and windows and doors open as well. And if you are using any chemical products or colours, make sure you look after the skin on your hands, particularly if you have sensitive skin, by protecting them with some suitable gloves like these nitrile ones. And finally, make sure that you follow the manufacturer's instructions for the lathe, any tools that you use, and any other products that you apply to your piece. That's it. Please do enjoy the demonstration and have fun and be safe in your workshops. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for logging in this evening. I do hope you are all well. So yes, thanks for joining in this evening. I am in the control booth tonight, as it were, as Les is just over there getting warmed up for his demo. There he is. That will be starting in just a few minutes. We'll go round the room, as it were, the virtual room, just to say hello to a few people. Gerard's in from Ireland, Mark's in, SK Crafts, Philip Greenwood's in too. Who else? Klingspor's in, good evening to you. Martin Shepherd, hiya. Drop a comment, tell us where you are. Tell us where you're from, anywhere in the world. We've got a couple of minutes just before Les gets started. Martin Shepherd's in Sussex. Oh, Helen Jenkins. Hi, Helen. Dennis Interossa. Hi. Steve Hales in again. Good to see you, Steve. Thanks for logging in. Philip J's in South Africa. Fantastic. Hi, Philip. Julian Cleeks in Wales. Paul Heighton, I'm assuming, is in Gravesbury. Chris Nunn. Hi. Phil from Chester. Rob Saunders in Germany. Hi, yeah. Martin Kavanagh. Oh, Martin Kavanagh, it's good to see you the other day. Thanks for dropping in or dropping by. Surrey, the Surrey Open Day. Malcolm Douglas, good to see you too. Debbie Gothard, hello. And Andy, Wyvie Woodshed. Awesome to see so many people logging in. Terry Hooper's in Sussex. Hiya, Terry. Okay, we've got just a minute or so before we get going. Colin Bradshaw. Hiya, Colin. Mike Brady. We know Mike Brady, don't we, Les?
We know Mike Brady.
Yeah. I'm going to switch your mic on.
Ooh.
Your mic is now on.
Hello, Mike Brady. We know Mike Brady.
We do know Mike Brady. There he is. There's Les.
All slim me.
Ready, Les.
I was born ready.
Right. Okay, I'm going to turn that off just for a minute, and I will give Les his proper introduction. So yes, good evening everybody. Thank you very much indeed for logging in. Now, although I am live on YouTube tonight, I have handed my workshop over to Les for the evening so he can give you a demonstration on spindle turning. He is going to turn, together with a little overview and a reminder of spindle turning good practice. He's also going to turn one of these rather attractive little pots for you and run through his tools. I'll leave a note in the comments about where you can grab hold of these tools if you are interested in getting them. But for now, it is what? Oh, I just forgot what button I needed to press because of the new thing. So it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Les to the workshop this evening. And if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to copy and paste them out of the chat and keep them for when there's sort of a natural break. If I miss any, I do apologise. I do try very hard. Right, so over to Les.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks for lending me your expertise and your workshop this evening. So just a little overview of what I'm going to do and what hopefully we'll get out of tonight's presentation. Instead of just making it a complete sales pitch for my tools, which I obviously wanted to do, but Martin said I ought to actually make something as well. So I am going to do a project, but we're going to go through using my tools. We'll also talk a little bit about the development and why especially a couple of my spindle gouges are different than an off-the-shelf spindle gouge. But hopefully there'll be enough technique in there for you guys tonight. Anybody who watched my I did a club demo last week, which some of you I know watched, on production turning, on copy turning, so there will be a little bit of a double up on some of those techniques, but hopefully, you know, if you didn't quite get it then, you'll get it this time. By all means, ask questions. This is an interactive demo, and asking questions means that, you know, if we don't give you the information you want, do ask for it and stuff like that as we're going, because we try and give everything, but obviously there's some things that we're missing and stuff like that. But I will talk through tool angles, I'll talk through development of the tools, plus of course making some shavings. So what we're going to do first is we're going to literally do that basic techniques, you know, that piece of wood on the lathe, start off with a piece of square and make some cuts. Now I'm going to talk through the tools that I would use normally for doing this, but I'm actually going to do as much as possible with my range of tools tonight. Okay, so we've got a piece of tulip wood, American poplar in between centres here. It's about 150 millimeters long. It's 60 millimeters square. It's basically the end of a production job, so it's been laminated up, and it's a cut off from a job I did for a customer a year ago. So what we're going to do first is we're going to cut in from the square into the round and just show you what we can do when we want to create a pommel. Okay, now there's various tools we can do with this, but the best tool without a doubt is a skew chisel. It's always going to be a skew chisel because it slices through the fibres. Now I'm actually going to use a small skew chisel for this, or my 3/8 multi-purpose tool. Tool rest on the centre or just above the centre line is quite good for this cut. Okay, make sure it's missing, and then we want to increase the speed. Now the faster I have the lathe going at this point, generally the easier this technique will be, because the wood becomes rounder in effect as I make this cut. So even though I've only marked one side of this, okay, even though I've only marked one side of this, you can see that even when the lathe is running, you can still see those marks there. It just means there's less for the customer to remove. Okay, so all I'm going to do first is make some slicing cuts. I could use a bigger skew for this if I wanted to. So if I was doing a square pommel there, just by slicing in to there, we end up with that square shoulder on there. I'm going to put a little curve on there, so all I'm going to do is the same cut again and just work that in there. So I'm using one point of the skew, seeing the importance of how I move my body and lift the tool into there to create that curved pommel. So that's all good there. It's a clean cut and it requires little or no sanding, okay, because as soon as you start sanding this edge, you're going to start to roll it over, and you're going to lose that definition and that crispness when we're going. So we're going to go now to the 1/2 inch multi-purpose tool, which is this one, and we're going to use it in a skew cutting mode, and I'm going to rough out with it. Now of course a roughing gouge will be a more effective tool for doing this. Okay, it will be a slightly quicker tool for doing this, but it's just to show you sometimes you don't have to pick up another tool if you can just do it like this. So I'm just going to run this in here, and I'm going to work off the shoulder. You can see I'm easing the tool through the cut. Okay, and that's now round on the end. I'm going to work it back in here. Now the thing I want you to take away from this cut is I'm not just scraping, okay? I'm not just got the tool horizontal and I'm not just running the tool backwards and forwards like I would be with a scraper, okay? If we can go to that camera here, yeah, so you can see the tool is not horizontal, that's scraping. The tool handle is down, which allows the tool to cut. There we go, the tool is now cutting. And you can see that by the difference in the shaving as I'm running the tool back to forwards. So the bevel is in contact. I'm running the tool backwards and forwards. And it's a really good technique to learn how to do, to show you the importance of body movement when we're working throughout the cut. So it's a matter of locking the tool to my side and working it back in there. Right, so I just caught that corner there, I'm going to clean up into there again. Okay, right, so if we go over the top again now, we can see a shadow line there. Now that's an overcut fillet. Now Gary Rance, the guy that taught me, would tell me off of that overcut fillet there. Okay, that fillet should not have that shadow line there. That fillet should be down to there. And part of that is because if the leg was going to be stained, like a lot of the traditional stuff would have been, if that was going to be stained, that groove there would show up as a very, very, very dark line, and it would accentuate anything in there. So there's our pommel through into our round bit there. We can now keep working with the skew. Okay, the multi-purpose tool, which is this one, used in its skew cutting mode. Okay, and we're just going to have a little bit of a practice, a little bit of a practice of our technique to do our bead. So our first cut is just going to mark our bead, and then by positioning my body and lifting the point into it, I'm going to make half a V. I'm going to move my body round, just come in there, half a V. Okay, those are exactly the same, because what I've tried to do there is I've tried to take the right amount of material off with two cuts there, the right amount of material off with two cuts there. Okay, so in effect they both should be the same if I've taken the right amount of material off. I'm then going to mark the top. That just gives me a visual guide about where to start the cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the cut just under the skin of the wood there, and as I make that cut I'm going to roll the tool. But what's important is as I roll the tool I need to lift the tool. Okay, so I lift the handle and I go inwards, and that was the key word that solved my, that's the key word that gave me the ability to, or the key phrase that gave me the ability to be able to use a skew. The guy that taught me how to use a skew said, whatever you do with this tool, it must be going forwards. Okay, as soon as you stop going forwards and roll the tool, then it will bite you. So as I go around this curve here, the tool is advancing forwards into that groove there, and then on the other side it's advancing forwards into that groove there, and then that creates our bead. Okay, so our line is left there, we've got a curve down either side. So let me just go through that again. So we're going to go 1, 2, we're going to mark that bead up, make those incisions down the side like so. Round here, incisions down the side again. Once again they're exactly the same. Put that little mark on the top. Now if I have a big bead, sometimes it's just worth knocking the corners off. Okay, if I knock the corners off with the skew, what it means is that as I go round the shape I'm not blocking the cut. I'm not going to come to a point where the tool is trying to remove too much material as I go around the curve. So here we go again, we're going to go under the skin of the wood there. We're going forwards all the time as I bring the tool round into there. Okay, so we're going to go on this side now, as I go that side. As I bring the tool round, the tool is going forwards as I go into the cut. Okay, and they're pretty similar, those two beads, so it shows I'm on the way to being a production turner because I've learnt how to do two shapes the same by repeating the cuts on both of the shapes. So that's our half inch. We're going for 3/8. Now these are measured on the diameter of the bar, so this is the 3/8 bar, this is the half inch bar. Sorry, this is the, so there we go, that's the two different sizes. The grind wise, okay, this one's close to the 30. Okay, the big one's close to the 30, this one's close to the 25. If you're going to use it mostly as a skew chisel, 25 degrees is the best angle. If you're going to use it a little bit more for the other, in its other modes, in inverted commas, as a scraper, as a peeling cut tool, or as a planing cut tool, you can probably go towards a more 30 on it. Okay, but all you've got to remember on the 30 is that it will cut better. On the 25, sorry, is it will cut better. But as a skew, it will be a little bit more difficult to maintain the cut. So it's a little bit more of a, not an advanced tool, but basically once a little bit more difficult to learn if you're beginning your journey into wood turning. So we're going to do a little bead here, just with this tool, just to show that this one, it works exactly the same. Okay, there. I'm going to take another cut down, I'll do one down there. And I'm not, with a little bead like this, I'm not going to bother marking the top. I'm just going to go, going to wing it. And if it come out a little bit pointed like that one, you can just kiss the top of that. Okay, and then just that's now ready for sanding as we go through. So, a couple of other things we can do with this tool. Of course, we can use it as a sizing tool. Okay, so just by lifting in, we can create spigots like so, and you can always clean the spigot by just sliding the tool backwards and forwards. And that's a really good little technique to learn how to do when you've got to take off tiny amounts when you're trying to fit a spigot, when you're making 2 or 3 part projects like table lamps and candlesticks. So that's basically what we do with our multi-purpose tool at this stage. Now I'm just going to go over to a very quick overview of the spindle gouges. Okay, spindle gouges, 2 different sizes. Okay, we'll talk a little bit later about their development. But you should notice they have slightly shorter bevels. Okay, so the length of the bevel is slightly shorter than it would be on a normal spindle gouge. If you look at a normal spindle gouge, this is a half-inch spindle gouge. These 2 tools are sharpened exactly on exactly the same settings on the jig. You can see the bevel on this spindle gouge is physically longer. It's about a third longer than the one on my thing. Now I know I've taken the heel off this one, but it's still a third longer, this bevel, which means when I go into a tight curve, it's not going to be as easy to get the bevel in contact as it will be with this one. So let's just do a cove with the half-inch spindle gouge. Once again, it's a spindle gouge that is made a half-inch bar, and this once again is important to keep the tool going forwards, obviously, to get more of that scooping action. There, and I can keep that bevel in contact all the way when I'm creating a cove on work like so. So that's a very, very effective cut. You can see that it's a matter of just picking the cut up. As I go in, I open the flute, I flow the tool round. As I get to the centre, I lower the handle slightly, and that pulls me out of that cut. So let's just talk a little bit more about that lowering the handle. Okay, if I'm doing a very narrow cove, so if I'm doing a cove in here, so I want to do a cove now that's actually narrower than the diameter of the tool. Now this actually makes it more awkward, because what I don't want to do is catch the other side. So what I mean by that is as I go down one side as I go down one side with the cut, what I don't want to do is catch the other side with the tool, which becomes more difficult because the tool doesn't want to fit in there as well. So that way we have to do what I would call I'm going to call it a comedy drop of the handle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, as I go in, when I get to the bottom, I don't want to catch the other side. So when I get to the middle, I'm going to comedy drop the handle. So I'm going to accentuate that movement there. As I get to there, I'm going to drop the handle. As I get to there, I'm going to drop the handle. Now if you look now over the top, you'll see I've created a cove that is smaller than the tool. Okay, and it just saves having to pick up another tool. Now if I go to a smaller tool in there, I'm actually going to be able to get that deeper. The spindle gouges are ground at 30 degrees. Okay, so all my spindle gouges generally are ground at 30 degrees. Okay, they come actually when I sell them, they actually come at 35, which is a little bit more user friendly. Okay, but you can take them back a little bit. The only reason for that is because what I found is if I supply them at 30 degrees, because a lot of people when they sharpen, they tend to heat the tool up a little bit too much. It's quite a thin edge. You've got to be a little bit more careful when you're sharpening. It doesn't really make a massive amount of difference to most of you guys. It's just that sometimes with a 30 degree, it gives me the ability to be able to fit the tool in a little bit deeper. So once again, I've got a cove that the tool won't fit in. I've now gone to the 3/8 signature gouge, and I'm going in there. And now I've created a proper deep cove in there. Okay, now I had to learn to turn all these shapes because a lot of the work I do is copying traditional work. And that would have been quite a traditional shape years ago. It's something that the Georgians would have done quite a lot of in the factories, the Regency type furniture, because that very, very deep cove, because it gives you that fantastic detail as you go in there. So that's basically what we're doing with these tools here. Okay, that's our practice. We can now put that into a project. Okay, just keep firing those questions at Martin. I can hear him typing away in the background, so I'm sure he's either playing Dungeons and Dragons or answering your questions. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take that off, and you can see just to build up of shapes on there, we can make something that actually looks quite good shape wise. Okay, so we've made quite a nice little contemporary leg there. Okay, so this type of project. So here's a project here. Okay, now it's normally got a double finial on this, but I'm going to save that bit because I do lots of wood turning clubs around the country. I'm going to show you how I do that at a wood turning club. I don't want to give away all my secrets in one go. Okay, and also because of the way that time's allowed. Plus, I'm actually going to make the finial today out of pine. Okay, which I'm not sure would work so well in this. Now the reason I'm going to make the finial out of pine is mainly because pine's actually quite easy to turn, but you have to cut it. So I can't get away with a bad technique or a bad cut with the pine because it will tear the grain out. So it's going to show you that I should be able to hopefully get the finish straight off the tool as I'm working. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a little bit of hollowing on this body, which means we're going to show how the spindle gouge will help with that, and then we're going to do some shaping and stuff like that. So we're going to do with the body first. Okay, I've got a nice piece of oak. Okay, brilliant medullary rays or medullary rays running through it. So we're going to mount that between centres, and we're going to rough this out properly. We're going to rough it out with the spindle roughing gouge, because that's the most effective tool to do that with. Cut very unsquare on the bandsaw. We're going to slow the lathe down a little bit as we're working. We'll make sure there's no splits in this. This is a bit of my dad's timber. We're currently so we're hoping there's no horrible splits in it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the lathe going fairly slow because of the chances of having some splits. So I'm going to use the spindle roughing gouge. I'm going to use once again the angle of the tool, keep the handle down and work. No, it doesn't sound like there's any splits in this at all, so that's good. No, it looks all right. So we can I think we can up the speed a little bit. And we're just going to take it down till we have the diameter we're going to be working to. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to go on to the multi-purpose tool, and then we're going to create a spigot. Now the chuck I'm going to use is a one-way talon. Okay, and the one-way talon chuck, one-way's made in the one-way chuck made in Canada. They have gripper style jaws. Okay, so they have gripper style jaws and they're parallel. So I don't want to create a dovetail on this. Okay, but what I am going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a dovetail and then remove it for this chuck. So if I wanted a dovetail, and we'll put it on this end so we can see, what I would do is I would lift the handle of the tool. Okay, so my handle is low. I'm lifting the handle. That advances. And then when I get to there, I just turn the tool on its side, and the round section of the multi-purpose tool then pretty much automatically creates that dovetail. Okay, one thing about a dovetail, do put less on rather than more. Okay, you're far better off having less dovetail than you are too much dovetail. It will tend to grip and pull in a little bit better in that respect, I've found. I don't want it to dovetail, so I'm just going to take it down. And of course you could measure this to make this is right. I tend to guess it. I've done a few spigots in my life, so I tend to think that I can get pretty close on there. Now, one of the things you've got to be careful of when you're creating a spigot is to remember the tool will cut fresh air better than it cuts wood. So if you aggressively push that in, that tool wants to run towards the fresh air rather than into the wood. So that by lifting the tool into the wood, you get that nice peeling cut. So in effect, you're almost unraveling the wood how it grew. Okay, and that way that the tool will not push itself out, and that way you create that nice square shoulder here, which is going to sit on top of the jaws when I turn this piece of wood round. The other thing, of course, that's important is you don't want this spigot too long, because it shouldn't be bottoming out on the chuck. So you don't want that part there to hit that part in there. So you must make sure it's slightly shallower than the depth of your jaws. That way you'll get the best possible spigot. Remember that your spigot is the interface between the wood staying on and the wood falling off. So it is important to get it right at this stage. Don't have the bit of wood fly off, or you knock off your lovely project and then wish you'd done it properly at the earlier part. Right, so chuck on. We're going to grip that on there. We're gripping onto long grain, so the grain is running in this direction, so we can be quite tight with it. Okay, we haven't got to be particularly careful about over tightening the chuck. We can do, I mean, I tighten up every hole, force a habit. Okay, it's on there, but I will, you know, by using your hearing senses, that will tell you whether it's coming loose as we're working. So once again, back onto the spindle roughing gouge. I'm just going to true this up. Okay, just going to true this up. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're now going to go on there and we're going to start doing another cut. Now you could go to a smaller tool rest here if you felt more confident in doing that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to... Martin's just offered me a smaller tool rest. No, I'll persevere and keep moaning about the long tool rest all the way through the presentation. I do actually really like the Vic Mark tool rest anyway, so I'm happy enough to use this one. So what we're going to do now is I'm now going to chamfer the top. So I'm going to chamfer the top first. Okay, I'm going to chamfer the top so you can see what we're doing here. Okay, and one of the reasons I'm going to chamfer the top, because once again it's going to show you how good a finish you can get straight off the tool when we're working. Okay, So one of the problems you've got about chamfering on top of this is when we present the tool like this, the tool is prone to escape when we pick the cut up because it wants to pick the tip of the tool up. So there's various ways of overcoming this. You can fix the tool in your left hand, fix it against your body, all those points of contact and work it. But I'm just going to give you a little trade secret now. What I find is if you lift the tool into the cut, you'll pick up the right part of the tool rather than the tip. So if I push the tip in, this happens. If I lift the handle, you can pick the cut up. So it's a very effective way of picking the cut up there. So just lifting, as you lift it advances. So that's a little bit of something for you more experienced turners out in the audience. Now you can see here, if we go on the front here, it's got a fantastic medullary ray right there, which is, you know, every now and again wood just, you know, I mean, I've turned enough wood in my life and I've worked with timber all my life, and every now and again something sort of astounds me. That just doesn't look right, does it? But it's fantastic. It looks like someone's glued a veneer in. Okay, so that's our little chamfer across there, and you can see on the film there, okay, especially with Martin's fantastic new cameras, how shiny this piece of wood is. Okay, so that's straight off the tool just by getting the bevel in contact and making a decent cut. So let me show you that again. So here we go. So I'm lifting there's my cut, working in, I'm matching the feed of the tool to the speed of the wood, and I'm creating that lovely shiny surface. Now I could do that with a skew if I wanted to, but the gouge will do it absolutely perfectly. And because the next stage I'm going to do with the gouge anyway, it saves me having to pick up another tool. So I'm going to go in there now and start to hollow it. Now I'm going to hollow it leaving all this bulk at the bottom, okay, at first. Now if I took this down quite thin here now, if you look at this one, if I took this down thin, what's going to happen? Oh, okay. So if I took this area down to this diameter now, then tried to hollow it, it's going to become too weak. I would have got my order of tooling massively wrong. So what I need to do is I need to hollow this with as much strength in there as possible. The problem with that is I don't know the perfect shape, you know, I don't know the shape on the inside until I've done the shape on the outside, and vice versa. So I would say you need to work on a little bit of both together. In effect, you want to do a little bit of this, a little bit of the outside shape, a little bit of the inside, and take your time and work yourself down. Now of course nowadays we have these fantastic steadies, we could put a steady round it, take it down and do it like that, but it's actually nice to sort of try and work with the limitations of the material and try and work it down like we used to have to do in the old days, okay, back in the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a little area up the top here and then get on the inside and we can talk through some hollowing. So I'm just going to create a shoulder there. So here's my curve. We'll talk a little bit more about this cut later. Okay, so here's a sideways cut there. Okay, so you can start to see that urn shape appearing out of the blank of wood, and once again an absolute perfect surface finish straight off the gouge. Now hollowing. The fact that this is giving me such a good finish straight off the gouge also tells me that the wood is going to be quite dense. And because the wood is going to be quite dense, the trade-off about getting that perfect finish on the outside, the trade-off will be it's probably going to be quite hard to hollow, but we will give it a go. So a lot of people will drill a hole first. I'm not going to bother. Okay, this gouge will do it, but I also never drill a hole with a gouge. I know people do it and you can see people do it. I find it actually quite an ineffective way of doing it because the hole will generally not always end up smack bang in the middle. It also heats the tool up and it'll also blunt the tool. So in effect I find it's not worth it. If I want to drill a hole, you know, I use a tailstock mounted drill and go in. Okay, so it's actually behaving a little bit better than I thought it was going to do. So what we need to do now, we need to learn how to tell the time. Okay, so what we've got now is we've got a flute pointing at 12 o'clock. Okay, and if I go in with the flute pointing at 12 o'clock, that left-hand wing is going to have a lot of pressure on there, and the tool wants to roll over. Okay, and because the tool wants to roll over, I will either be white knuckling it, trying to hold it to stop it from rolling over, or I'll be fighting it, and then wood turning doesn't become fun. You know, it's supposed to be fun. We shouldn't be fighting it. It should be nice, easy, relaxing process. So what I want to do, okay, is I want to go in about 10:30. So if you imagine that is that's pointing at about 10:30 now, and if I go in at 10:30, I can make an incision like so, and then all I need to do then is bring the tool handle, take the tool handle away from me. So incision, allow it to drill a hole, take the tool handle away from me. Incision, allow it to drill a hole. And I just keep doing that, really. I mean, it's not a difficult process once you get the muscle memory built up. Now, a couple of little hints when you're teaching people, when you're showing people how to do this. One of the things that people do, okay, is once it goes wrong, so they go in there and this will happen. So let me slow the lathe down. They go in there and the tool goes there. There we go. So there's a dig in or a catch. Okay. Once that happens, what people do then is they do it again. They go in there and they go, wow. Okay. So what you've done there is you've put the tool in the wrong place. You've taken an aggressive, uncontrolled cut. You've then put the tool back in the same place, which when I describe it like that actually sounds a bit silly, that you've actually done the same thing wrong twice. The reason that a fair percentage of people will do this, the same thing wrong twice, is that you didn't knowingly put it in the wrong place. Okay, you don't go, I'm going to put this in the wrong place, bang. So when you take the tool out, you sort of put it back in the same place again because you think it must be in the right place. Well, it isn't. So what I want you to do next time that happens is I want you to stop. I want you to press the reset button in your head and then go back in there. So if it goes like this, again, so you go in that side and it goes there, I want you to think, well, that's obviously wrong, so I must stop that. So to stop that coming up the side, digging in, I need to rotate the tool towards me. So what you're doing is you're actually adjusting the cut to make it work the next time. Okay, so let me just, I need to just pop the tailstock centre out of the, excuse me, while I'm very close up there. So we're going to go in there now and we're going to work. So what I'm trying to do when I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep about 1/3 of this cutting edge in contact. There. And I can do an undercut. Okay. I thought something, I slowed it down, didn't I? Okay, so that jumping is caused. This is when I'm doing a live demo to an audience. I always have to ask the audience at this stage. But basically, I need to tell you guys, there is only one safe place I can put the tip of this tool. Okay? And that's in the center. If I put the tip of this tool and touch this tip of this tool into this project, anywhere apart from the center, the tool is going to rattle around a bit in there. Okay? It's a bit like the best way to practice, or best way to demonstrate that would be to put a flat disc on there and keep sticking the point in until it doesn't move. And the only place you can stick it in there where it doesn't move is smack bang in the middle. Okay, so I need to be down here, making sure that if I'm going to stick the tip of that tool in, it's going to be smack bang in the center. Okay, so I'm starting to create a little bit of an undercut there. Now the reason I like the spindle gouge for this cut rather than you going straight away to a hollowing tool is the spindle gouge will have a conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt will shove the shavings out. So as I'm in there and I'm working it out, you can see I'm bringing the shavings out with me, so I'm not building. You can see again, you can see the shavings. So I'm not collecting the shavings inside there as we go through. Okay, so I'm not looking at this one, I'm just feeling the tool in the middle. There's my cut. And then round. So, why buy a hollowing tool then? Well, the limitations of this tool are once we get sort of two inches off the tool rest. That's what, 5 centimeters off the tool rest, 5.5, 6 centimeters. Once we get that far off the tool rest, the tool will start to sing at you. So we're going to move the tool rest in a little bit, but before we do that, we're going to create the shoulder for the lid to sit on. So we're going to go back to the multi-purpose tool for that. So we're going to use a 3/8 one because a 3/8 smaller tool will give us a slightly sweeter cut. I'm just using a plunge cutting technique. We're just going to create a shoulder that the lid will fit on. I'm going a little bit bigger than I would do normally. Okay. So there's our shoulder we're going to sit on, and I can do quite a bit of an undercut with this. You'd be surprised how much you can get into there. Okay, I don't know if we can still see okay. I'm sure Martin will tell me if I get my shoulder in the way, or oh, there we go. That's when I stick the tool in. Should pay attention, shouldn't I? No harm done. Okay, just make sure there's no breakout on that. I'm going to put that down to fatigue. I did turn 1,000 hardboard discs today, which is a bit mad, I suppose. Well, actually 1,180 of them to be precise. So there's our shape in there, okay, and you can start to see that it's not a brilliant finish, but it's okay. So as I get nearer my finished surface, I need to start making the cuts smaller. And this is something you have to sort of judge depending on the material you're working. If I've got a really, they call it punky nowadays. When I was in the sawmill years ago, we used to call it carroty, so carroty timber. So that sort of brittle, half-rotten timber. If I've got something that's tearing out quite a lot when I'm aggressively taking the middle out, I need to start quite early thinking about my finishing cuts. Because, you know, when I'm within maybe 3 or 4 millimeters of my finished surface, I want to start thinking of my finishing cuts. If I'm working with something really dense, I can pretty much be aggressive with my finishing cuts to almost my finished surface and then do a cleaning cut. On this is somewhere in between. So when I get to that point where I think, oh, I'm going to be getting near my finishing cuts now, I can start just decreasing the size of my cuts. So all I'm going to do is come in there and I'm going to do exactly the same technique. The tool's still at that sort of 10:30, but I'm just decreasing the size of my cuts. Okay, you can hear the spindle gouge just starting to sing at you, or sing at me. Okay, so if I wanted to at this point, I can come back on the outside and take a little bit of the outside down. there. At the moment I'm just roughing that down like so. So I've taken a little bit more of the shape down the outside, then back on the inside, and keep working it down until you get to the point where you are happy. Right, so there's a little bit of breakout on that sharp edge on the top there, so I'm just going to go back onto the, I'm going to round that over a little bit on the spindle gouge. Okay. Just the, just the open grain nature of the oak is just causing a little bit of a problem. Okay, that's better. Only wants to be a very small rim as we go through there. That's cleaner. Okay, so we're going to go in there now, tip of the tool. Small cut. This is a scrape, but it is a scrape with the grain. And the oak will respond quite well to that, as long as I'm not too aggressive. Okay, so we're not going to hollow out any more of that in there today because there's no point, because basically you can't really see what you're doing. Okay, or you can't see perfectly in there as we're working. We're yet to, you know, I've tasked Martin to come up with a camera that will sit inside the piece as we're turning it. That's his next mission. So his next mission is to have a camera inside there somehow.
I do have a spare webcam now. We've got these. I could put one on the inside of the tool rest.
It never quite works, actually. I think we've tried it in the past, and all you can see is a big cloud of dust. That's the problem.
What do they say? Hold my beer.
Yes, rather, yeah. So what I'm going to do then, I was just going to go in and say how I would clean up that surface. One of the problems about the spindle gouge, it doesn't always give you the a ridge-free surface. So I probably would go in with a small scraper. I'll just go in with a small disc scraper and I will clean up on the inside. Remember, if you are using a swan neck type tool, you need to make sure that the swan neck is not on the tool rest. Okay, you need to make sure the swan neck is. I'm actually going to take the handle off this if I can find a Allen key. No.
Right hand side small drawer.
Oh. Martin's far too organised. I normally look left a bit. There it is. Oh, we'll persevere with it. I can't find the right size. We'll persevere with it. So we're going to go in there and just do some light cuts and just clean up inside there. But like I said, this is not a hollowing demo. It's more about the spindle work demo and working the project. So we're going to go on the outside now. Okay, hopefully I'll have something that maybe fits in there or gives us some support. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to work on the outside and save any vibration, I'm literally just going to put a loose bung in the end here, and if I can get it to run fairly true, we're going to support the outside, because it will just make the process of me explaining what I'm doing a little bit better. Now if it looks too wobbly, we won't bother doing that. Okay, we'll use it. Well, Martin's got the proper thing for it, so we're going to use the proper thing for it. There's nothing like being prepared, and this was nothing like being prepared. He can't find. We'll persevere without it anyway. It'll be fine. It'll be absolutely fine. Okay. So we're going to go back onto the spindle gouge. Okay, I'm going to go back onto the difference between my spindle gouge and a normal 1/2 inch spindle gouge. They look pretty similar. Okay, this is a Sorby. These are made for me by Ashley Isles. Okay, they're made specially for me, and they aren't different. See, most people think they're just a spindle gouge with a different grind on it. They're not. What happens when I manufacture these, and you can actually see it in Martin's graphic quite well, if you look at the left hand profile of that tool, you can see it just narrows where the tool becomes, in full round to where the flute begins. So basically these tools of mine have actually been ground in at the side. So this area here on this tool is actually thinner than the bar of the material. So these tools have been ground in at the sides. Now what that creates, it creates a lower wing. It creates a different profile on the side of the wing. So when you look at these two tools, they are both the same thickness. So I'm not sacrificing strength. But when I sharpen them, the wing ends up lower because the way the tool's been ground in over the top. Because the wing is lower, it makes the same 30-degree angle shorter. So if you think about it, if I've got a lot of steel here and I grind 30 degrees, I end up with a bevel that long. If I've got less steel there and I grind, the bevel only ends up that long. So that bevel being shorter means that I will find it easier to get a bevel to get a bevel in contact on a cove. It also, when I run down through curves, shapes like this, it's just a little bit easier. So I can use that really good slicing 30-degree angle, but with a shorter bevel. So it just makes the tool a bit stronger and a bit easier to get the bevel in contact. Now, one little word of warning: this tool will not make you from hero to zero. You know, if you can't use a spindle gouge, okay, sorry, yeah, zero to hero even. This tool, if you can't use a spindle gouge, you know, it's not a matter of just buying the dream, which you've always got to be a little bit careful when you watch somebody using a particular tool or something like that. Okay, what you need to do is you need to think, is this tool going to make it any better? Well, I think it will, because I think it's easier to get a bevel in contact, but it's not going to make you from a non-turner to a turner, I'm afraid. Okay, I mean, I've never turned for a hobby, but it's always that interesting thing. I always use that golf analogy. I've bought a lot of golf clubs in my time that I thought all I needed to do was buy the club, grip it, shut my eyes, hit it, throw it as hard as I can at the ball, and it was all going to do it for me. Well, obviously it doesn't, so you've got to be a little bit aware of that. But the only thing is, I would say, is that they are priced incredibly competitively with other manufacturers on the market. So, you know, if you are going to buy the dream, you're not paying an extra. You know, you're not paying double the price for them as they go.
Question from Martin Shepherd.
Yes, Martin.
Yeah, Martin Shepherd is just asking that he bought one of your gouges years ago and he thought the bevel was 40 degrees. Have you changed it?
I said that I have it at 30 because I'm me, but yes, you can keep it at 40 if you want. It will still work exactly the same. It won't give you that sliceability through the ends of the fibres. But Martin, you're an experienced turner. Try and, you know, up that angle on it a little bit. You know, get it to sort of 35, and you will find it. You'll just at your stage of turning, because you're a competent. I mean, I know, for those of you who don't know, I do know Martin quite well. You're a competent enough turner, Martin. So by all means, increase that bevel now. I have to give it at that sort of point where it's good for sharpening for people, and it's fairly easy for people to use rather than sort of next level. But that's the versatility of a grinding jig, and that's the versatility of tools. You know, I've got racks of tools out there, but they're all the same tools with different grinds on. You know, they're all basically, they're either a flat tool or a round tool. It's the grind that I'm changing that makes a difference on most of them. Okay. So we're going to go in there now and we're going to start to remove some of the wood. So stock removal. There. And we're now going to talk about getting the most out of our spindle gouge. Now, a lot of you more experienced turners, if I said to you on this shape here, I want you to pick the cut up with a spindle gouge and I want you to shape that with a spindle gouge, you'd go, yeah, okay, I reckon I can do that. I reckon I'm competent enough to do that. Now, if I said to a lot of you, would you be competent enough to do it with a skew, some of you would turn white and start shaking. Okay? Because suddenly the skew adds that piece of fear. Okay? That means that when you're doing that, you're going to get very worried about it. Now, the interesting thing from my point of view is actually I don't think there's any difference in the cut between using a spindle gouge and a skew if you're going to use the spindle gouge at its most effective. The problem comes that the skew has no margin for error. So I'm going to do a couple of quite bizarre things going down here with the spindle gouge. Okay, and I'm going to show you that the spindle gouge will do it. It will give me a good cut, and a Mars Vera. So I'm going to rely on Martin now to give me the best camera angle, okay, or the best camera swap to show you some of the stupid things I'm doing during this cut. Okay, so we're going to pick the cut, bevel in contact. We're going to make the tool cut by rotating it. We're going to flow the cut down. As I'm flowing the cut down, I'm going to start doing this. And I'm going to start, you can see my body moving, I'm doing that. I'm going to go down, I'll go whoop, whoop, and I'll go like this. And what you can't see now is I'm doing it on one leg, and I'm waving my leg around. Okay, there you go. And I'm still moving the tool handle up and down like that, and I'm going down like that, and I'm doing that. There you go. Now, you look over the top of that. That's not very good, is it? Okay, but it never dig in. I've never had a dig in, never had a catch. So it shows that once I've got that spindle gouge in the right place, I'm actually okay. And that's why there's that's why there's less fear with a spindle gouge than there is with a skew. So let me do a proper cut, and then we do a cut with a skew, and I'll show you it's the same. Okay, so we'll do a proper cut now. So here's our bevel. We rotate the tool, lift the handle slightly. There's my cut, and now I'm just flowing as I go to a smaller diameter. I lift the handle, and that creates that perfect surface finish there. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to pick up the skew, and we'll use the 1/2 inch multi-purpose for this. So how did I do the spindle gouge? Okay, I got the bevel in contact, I rotated and lifted the handle slightly. Once I got the cut, I then took the tool to the side, lifting the handle as I went to a smaller diameter. Now what I'm not going to do with this tool is I'm not going to show you the one-legged jump up and down bit with it, because if I do that, I'm going to come off the bevel and it's going to bite me. The difference with the skew than the spindle gouge, and this is probably simplified, but basically if you come off the bevel with a spindle gouge, it will tend to scrape a little bit. If you come off the bevel with the skew, it will bite you. So you need to keep that in mind as you're going. Right, so here we go. So bevel, there's my cut. Okay, little bit of a run back there because I stopped. Okay, we'll do that one again. So there's my bevel, there's my cut. Keep lifting the tool as I go to the smaller diameter, and I'm by the side. Now, why use a skew then? Well, the skew gives you the better finish. There's a little bit more bevel in contact, it gives you the better finish. Now, on a piece of oak, I'm probably going from a 240 grit finish to a 320 grit finish by using the skew. So, is it worth the extra, I'll say risk? Is it worth the extra learning to get that better finish? No. But it will be on some woods. It will be on something like Sported Beech. It will be on the softer woods like pine, Douglas fir, because that way you cannot get away without you want to get the best possible cut throughout that surface. So there's our little planing cut on there. Okay. How are we doing on time, Martin?
We could do a comfort break shortly if you want.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this down to our little spigot. Okay, now I would normally go back on the inside. Okay, I'm going to say that thing that demonstrators always say, back in my workshop I would hollow that out. Okay, the only difference is, the only thing about that is, as you know, is that the last 10% takes 90% of the time. So I'm not going to, I would get bored, you would get bored, so I'm not going to go and fiddle around in there for the next 10-15 minutes trying to clean that out in there. It's not a problem. You just got to pretend that it's hollowed perfectly. Okay, so we're going to take this down here, stop removal, working concave. Here's our concave to remove our waste, convex. Okay, and that creates that lovely shape Those of you who are old enough, Martin obviously isn't, will remember that sort of 1970s lager glass. Okay, that's that sort of shape that I've got here so far. I'm going to use the multi-purpose tool to create a spigot. I'm not going to make it to any particular size, but I do want it quite small. Okay. And if I'm working to any particular size, you'll see why. I'm trying to make it just slightly bigger than the diameter of my multi-purpose tool, which you'll see why in a minute. So we're going to go down to there. That's got a little tiny flat at the bottom, and we're very happy with that shape into there. So what you would do now, you would now sand, polish. Obviously I would sand and seal it, and with Hampshire Sheen sanding sealer. I would then cover it in Hampshire Sheen wax, okay, and polish it up, make it all shiny. The inside I tend to sand with wax, or I sand with an oil. Most of my boxes on the inside, if it's a decorative box like an exotic, I would sand using the Hampshire Sheen wax as a lubricant. Okay, so I tend to use the high gloss just as a lubrication inside. If I'm sanding a piece that's a little bit more open grained, okay, possibly like the oak, I might go in there with the citrus burnishing oil and oil it and then sand it while the oil is still wet. So I'm using the oil and the waxes as a lubrication to keep the end grain cold as I'm going. Plus, it means that you end up with a much quicker, better surface on the inside. So don't be afraid of using a lubrication in there like the wax or the oil when you're sanding. Just be careful, of course, that obviously when you put stuff inside there and spin the lathe, that it is liable to throw it all out. Okay, so be aware of that when you're working, but you'll be amazed how good a surface you can get by using that lubrication on the end grain. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to part it off, and I'm going to part it off using Martin's parting tool. Okay, because I forgot to bring mine in. So I'm going to part it off. Okay, now importantly, one little hint with this. Okay, so if we can go to a full picture, Martin, so you can see me lazy. So this is that's okay. This is Les's jaunty leaning on the lathe pose. Okay, it is an important pose to do because we are going to need to be able to do that when we part off. So I'm going to stand to the side here. Okay. So I'm standing at about a 45-degree angle there. The tool is in my one hand here. I'm supporting the work over the top, and I'm going to pass off this. I'm going to take that down just a smidgen. And I'm only going to use a very tiny spigot. You'll see why that is in a minute. Okay, so we've parted that off with a little tiny spigot. I'd always say be careful when you are parting it off. Don't grip onto this piece too hard. Of course, if the guy that taught me said if you can smell burning pork, basically you're gripping onto that too hard. So be aware of that when you're holding that piece as it comes off. So turn the lathe off, take it away. Now, if you're not confident in doing that, of course, part in a little bit, get yourself a saw, stop the lathe, and saw that bit off as we're going. So we're going to go for a little bit of a break now, okay, while I have a practice and do the to see whether I can do the finial or not, especially after having a catch earlier on. You're not going to keep this one on here, are you? It's just going to be forever.
It'll be for probably a week.
Oh, it'll be for a week. Don't show Gary Rance that there. And that wasn't even a proper catch. That was a lack of concentration, which I'm going to let myself off.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all allowed a little.
We're allowed lax of concentration. When you've been turning all day, you sort of turn. I went home at 5 o'clock tonight, had something to eat, and then drove back up to do that. Yeah. So I'm going to blame that.
Yeah, cool. Right, so we're going to have a little 10-minute comfort break. So if you want to go and grab another bottle of wine or another beer or something like that, then please do.
That's an idea.
If you weren't here at the beginning, this little comfort break video includes an update of what's been going on in the school. So we'll see you back here in 10. Hiya, Martin here. Thanks for joining me for this demonstration live on YouTube this evening. Since the last demonstration last week, we have done a little bit more work here in the workshop, getting ready to move all of my stuff in here. Since I think you last saw it, we've moved our sharpening station over here above the compressor. The demonstration lathe that was here, my old lathe, has now been spun round, so we now have a 5th student lathe in here. We've still got a little bit of work to do on the walls, but the biggest thing is just back here. This area in here is going to be my new domain, or our new domain, for demonstrations and streaming live on YouTube like this. We've brought the little Axminster lathe in so we can demonstrate and teach on it in the interim period until we get my VL300 excuse me, get my VL300 in here. Across here are going to be some of the cupboards that I have in my current workshop. The back wall is going to be all nice and decorative, very professional looking, very studio like. There's going to be a little wall here. You can't see it because the stove chimney's in the way, but there's going to be a wall here where I'm going to be having my tools. There'll be a monitor that comes out to about here-ish, I expect, something about there, so I can chat and see what's going on, and you guys can see everything that's happening here. There'll be a second monitor just over there for Natalia to use, or me to use when somebody else is demonstrating on the main lathe here. The camera and stuff, or one of the cameras, is going to be above the spindle, just the same as it is at the moment. Another camera probably about there somewhere, and another one here-ish to look straight down the lathe bed, plus a few other cameras dotted around for alternative views of what's going on. We should hopefully, oh, and we've put some big lights in up there too. Now we should hopefully be in a position to move the lathe, hopefully by the end of November. None of this was supposed to happen until, well, the 8th of December or the 9th of December, after our last lesson of the year. But we're doing little bits as and when we possibly can as we get ready for the Harrogate show. And if you are going to the Harrogate show, please do come and find us on Simon Hope's stand. We are demonstrating and selling Hampshire Sheen from the Simon Hope stand. So if you are heading to Harrogate, please do come and say hello. I'll be demonstrating on all 3 days. I do need to put together a timetable of what and when I'll be demonstrating, but we're looking forward to that. But for now, Natalia is in the shed getting ready for, she's packing up some orders and getting some stock ready for Harrogate, and I'm getting ready for Les Thorne's demonstration, because that's why you're here tonight. You're here to watch Les Thorne and his spindle turning demo. So this is it. We are probably 50% of the way there. Enjoy the demo. See you in a bit. We would like to give you the best possible learning opportunities on how to use our products, and through the Hampshire Sheen Finishing Academy we can do that by providing you with an online learning experience of our recommended methods, hints and tips on using the range of products. By joining the Hampshire Sheen Academy you will have exclusive access to over 3 hours of online tutorial videos that have all been transcribed with subtitles into 7 different languages. The entire website can also be translated into a host of different languages too. And there are other benefits as well. Each of the lessons not only has the video, but it has written step-by-step guides as well as downloadable media for you to download when you have completed the lesson. Joining the Academy is completely free.
All you need to do is visit the Academy page on the website
and click on one of the Add to Cart buttons you will see. Check out as usual and we will look after the rest for you and send you all of your instructions. But for now, if you want to have a little look around the Academy, check out the preview lessons down at the bottom of the page. No sign up required. Have a look at those lessons, and if you like them, we'll see you in the Academy. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Right, we're back. After our comfort break, we actually managed to put the worlds to rights in 10 minutes. Almost.
we did.
Almost. Okay, so we're going to crack on. I've actually just knocked that on the floor, so I was hoping it's all in one piece, and it still is. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're now going to make our base. So a couple of questions, a couple of statements to preempt some of your questions. Why am I making it in 3 parts? I'm making it in 3 parts basically to make the project a little bit more interesting for you, but also it's that thing that it gives you the ability to be able to mix and match woods. You can use nicer, smaller amounts of woods for the finial and the base. Okay, you could use something a little bit plainer for the middle, something a bit cheaper because you're using more of it. So it does give you the ability to be able to play about with some more of the exotic timbers if you have any in your workshop. Okay, but the other thing is, like I said at the beginning, it's a little bit more interesting a project as we go. So what we're going to do now, we're going to make our little tiny base on here, and I'm going to make these out of pine. Now I've never made finials for this piece out of pine, so we're going to have a go with it. Now it's actually very good pine, so don't think I'm using a piece of that horrible sort of white sprucey type pine that you see in your local DIY. What do they call them? DIY, houses or DIY sheds. Okay, where you get those, where you get very, very rubbishy, very open grained, very white pine. This is a proper decent redwood. If you look at this over the top here, okay, you can see that it's from a fairly big tree. It's reasonably slow growing, so we should have a good chance of making some sort of fine detail on it. Okay, so a little bit of pine is going to make the workshop smell nice anyway. So I've mounted up between centres. The first things first, I'm going to put a chucking point on one end. Okay, so that's now round. Going to use the multi-purpose tool just to create a spigot. Now one of the questions in the chat that you may have seen is, why am I not using a badan? Okay, now a badan is a tool that's been popularised in France for a number of years. Okay, and the reason I don't use a badan is because it doesn't give me the ability to be able to do this. If I want to really remove a lot of wood, okay, when I'm creating a spigot, I'm working a long way off the tool rest, I can wiggle the tool. Okay, by wiggling the tool backwards and forwards, so I'm rocking the tool as I go in. Okay, this is in slow motion. If I do that, what I'm doing is I'm taking half that amount as I go down. And by doing that, I can actually remove the wood quicker than I can by just pushing in, because the resistance on the cutting edge is less. Okay, so it's one of the things I would do quite a lot sometimes when I'm working a long way off the tool rest, because the resistance on the cutting edge can cause that to happen. And when you're parting off or doing any sort of plunge cut, you never want the handle to come above the blade, because then it wants to feed through. So it's just one of the little things that you can do with the multi-purpose tool. It just helps that way. So I find it that little bit more versatile. The other thing probably, it was the fact I was taught, most of my skew work by Gary Rance, who uses a round skew, by Alan Batty, who uses a rectangular skew. I'm sure if I was French and I'd worked with Jean-Francois Escalon, I would be using a Bedan. So it's a bit like who we're taught by and who are the people that we aspire to going on our wood turning journey. I hope that answers your question. So I'm going to mount this up in here, okay. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the diameter of my base. Now we can talk about rules and stuff like that. I tend to just try and go for something that looks half decent. So I'm going to go to the bigger tool. I'll show you that wiggle again. So we're going to set a diameter about there. And I'm just going to do that little planing cut into there to finish that decent edge there. And this is good. If we go on the front now, you can see the difference. It's a great contrast between the cut here and the scrape down that surface. Okay, and just to show you the difference between the two, I'm going to just cut half of this surface now, just to show you the difference between the two cuts. Okay, so if I stop the lathe now, you can see the difference between the slicing cut and the scrape. Okay, the slicing cut is giving us a perfect finish here, the scrape doesn't. So that's why, this is why I would say it's important to learn how to use the tools to their most effective way, or don't turn pine. It's as simple as that. Tailor your technique to the wood. I don't have that luxury, because I have piles of wood that are brought in from a customer who wants me to make it round, and that may be pine or it might be something nice. I'm actually looking out through the window here into the old shop where I've got a load of wood piled up. I've got a load of English ash to turn, really nice air dried English ash to turn the next few days, which is a bit better than the 1180 hardball discs that I turned today. Okay, so what I'm going to do now. Okay, that's the diameter of my base, and by eye I've sort of made it the same size as the other one. Okay, we're now going to fit our we're now going to fit this into the base here. Okay, so first things first, I'm just going to face across the top. I'm going to use a small spindle gouge for that. Okay, so a small signature gouge. I heard Martin say something behind. Oh, okay. Right, so here's my cut across there. If the base ends up too short now, it's Martin's fault for making me do it again. Okay, so what we're going to do now, instead of drilling a hole, because it only wants to be shallow, okay, I can measure off here. So what I've done there, okay, is I've got my gouge, and I've worked out that plus a tiny bit should be the right size. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put that in the middle of there. Now you think that shouldn't work, and you think that shouldn't work because that side of centre is going upwards. But it does work, and the reason it works is because of the angle of the tool. Because of the angle of the tool, the bit that's working upwards is working on basically a negative rake, which means it doesn't grab on you. Oh, that really likes ending up on the floor today, that piece of oak. Right, so we're not quite there yet. We're going to go a little bit wider. Remember, whatever you take off one side comes off the other. Okay, that's me letting go of the tool. So we're just going to make sure that that is a tight fit, which it is. Okay, and then we're now ready to turn our base. And the reason I like a small hole there is because you can see when I do the base here, I want to keep this base as narrow as possible. Okay, if I have a big hole in there to take a big spigot from the body of the piece, I'm basically then not going to be able to make this as thin as I want to make it, which means basically my holding or my process is then determining my design, where I want my design to be as elegant as possible. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go in there now and we're going to make our little tiny bead. The bead will act as a punctuation point. There we go. So we're going to use our going to use our multi-purpose tool there to create our bead. We're now going to see the limitations of the pine. Okay, it's a bit big, that bead is. I'm actually going to go a tiny bit smaller. Hopefully the wood will allow us to do it. It's a little bit smaller in diameter, just to make the piece a little bit more elegant. I'm going to go a little V, half a V into there. Okay, and then I'm going to go onto the spindle gouge. I'm now going to make this actually a little bit longer. I'll make that a little bit longer because Martin maybe turn off a bit more off the top. And then we're going to go in there. And we can work all those cuts that we learned on our practice piece. Okay, we can then create that little bit there. I might not get away with that detail because of the brittleness does seem to be working. There we go. Remember that pine is very, very difficult to sand, especially redwood like this. So we want to try and get as good a finish as possible off the tool. We can then stick that on. We can step back and see what it looks like. I'm not sure the pine matches the oak particularly well, but you have to bear with me. And you can see what a beautiful grain that I'm getting on this. We're then going to part this off. Okay. So we're going to part this off, and as you saw earlier on, the parting tool does not give us a very good finish. Okay, and because the parting tool doesn't give us a very good finish, we're going to need to reverse mount this and clean it up. Hence why I've still got this bit still left in the chuck, because what I'm going to do is I'm now going to reverse mount this into the chuck, into the piece of wood left in the chuck. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that. When I parted it off, you can see I've left a little tiny witness here. That should be the same diameter as my base. So first things first, I need to create a hole. Normally you don't want to see that when you're turning, but in this case I did it on purpose. So in effect we're making a female jam chuck. Okay, so we're making a female jam chuck that we're going to stick that in there, hopefully, and we can be as tight as we like. Unlike a male jam chuck, this is very easy to get the piece out of because we'll be able to turn the jam chuck down to remove our project if it gets stuck. So it wants to be super tight. Okay. I'm hoping it's going to go in there actually, because this is a different chuck than I would normally use for this. We might have to very quickly make another piece of... Okay, so that's gone in there a touch loose. Okay, that's all right. Okay, if I can get it out. All right, because it's gone in there a touch loose, we just need to... There we go. Now sometimes you can get away with literally just tightening the chuck up. Okay. I wonder. We'll try that. Very risky. So what we've done there, there's enough flex in the jam chuck that when I tightened up the chuck, it squeezed the jam chuck onto the base, and you can see now the difference in the quality of the finish. And that's another great example of where you get the scrape side and the cut side. So nothing, you know, you can't sand that clean. There's no point trying to sand it on a disc sander like that. It has to be tooled to make it right. And then of course, to prove that we've reverse mounted it and done it again, we need to put our little Woodturner's grooves on there. Okay. So that proves that we've done that. And then when I undo the chuck now, there should be enough flex out of that, so that should come out quite easily. So that was actually a perfect demonstration of that. Doesn't always work that easily. Okay, so I'm just going to take that and fit that on the bottom of there. Hopefully, okay. So it doesn't. that fillet's too big on there. I don't like that fillet at all. So I would you know, in hindsight, that fillet's overpowering. That there's a bird beak there, which is half a V, that's overpowering on that base. But other than that, you know, it's okay. It fits nicely. It's beautifully turned. So all we've got to do now is think about doing the top part of it. So we're going to do the finial. Okay, now we're only going to be hanging around for about another 20 minutes or something, 10 minutes, 15 minutes while I do this finial. So do, by all means, if you need to ask any questions, do ask some questions in the chat now. If Martin doesn't answer them, I will try my best to answer them, especially on the subject of the tools that I've used today. Okay. They are available on my website. There is a limited stock at the moment, but new stock is coming tomorrow. I've just had notification. They are made in the UK by Ashley Isles. To my specification. So we're going to put a piece of wood on, we're going to mount it up, and we're going to make a finial. So first things first, I'm going to need to finish the base of it. So I am going to do this, and I'm actually going to try and make the finial from one fixing. That's the plan. Okay. Now I have the option to remount it if I need to, but basically I'm going to make the finial what most people would think will be back to front, in the fact that this end's going to be, sorry, This end's going to be the base, this end's going to be the top. It's just a slightly different way of doing something. So first things first, I'm going to mount it up in a shut. And this smells amazing, this pine does, it really does. Those of you who follow me on Instagram, which is at Les Woodturner, will know that I've just finished 300 stall legs out of oak. So my workshop has taken on a dirty grey hue, sort of oak coloured. It's sort of like the change of the seasons. I'm longing for my next pine job, so when my workshop will brighten up and smell nice. Okay, so first things first, we're going to clean across the end and we're going to fit this diameter into our piece here. Okay, so we're going to fit a diameter into there. Now I could measure it, but I'm just going to sort of play it by ear a little bit, really. I'm going to turn a taper, get an idea for the fit. So multi-purpose tool. Little bit smaller in diameter, and then turn a taper. The benefit of a taper, of course, is at one point it's going to be right, which is about there. Okay, be careful about putting it on while the lathe is running, because it can grab it and throw it out. We're now going to clean across this edge again, and we're just going to go through the another little demonstration of the benefit of the short bevel. So I'm going to go across with the 1/2 inch spindle gouge, and then I'm going to go across with the 3/8 spindle gouge, and we'll see if there is a difference in quality of the cut. So tool rest set up, so the tool is working across on the axis through to the center. Okay, so we're working there, bevel in contact, the bevel in the direction of the cut, and I'm working it through there. And I've got to get rid of the damage left by the center. Okay, now you can see that the damage is done quite deep in there. Okay, there's still a mark in that center there. Okay, so there, work across to the middle, and what's happening now to a point is I'm starting to chase myself down. Okay, that center is sitting right in the middle of one of these bits of early growth, and the reason for that, so I'm always going to struggle trying to get that perfect. So what I could do, if that was becoming a problem, is work down with the gouge, leave a little tiny bit in the middle like so, and then just sand that bit off, and that's sometimes more effective than trying to turn it away. So I've gone on to the 1/4 inch gouge, sorry, the 3/8 gouge. Okay, and we're pretty good with that. It actually doesn't really show when the lathe's off, it only shows when it's going. But we'll just go one more cut there. Now the small bevel of this tool gives us a slightly cleaner cut. So if we're looking at it in size wise, even though they're the same angle, the bevel is probably about 2/3 of the length of the bevel on the 1/2 inch gouge, and that just gives me that slightly sweeter cut when I go across onto the middle. Okay, so that's the bottom of my finial. Oh, once again, we need to create some little, we need to prove to people, don't we, that it's been reverse mounted. I always put 4 grooves on there because somebody once told me that 3 always works better. So that was just like, well, if that's going to be 3 going to work better, I'm going to put 4 on there just to upset people. It's a little bit punk rock. A little bit anti-establishment. Right. So we're going back onto there now. Going to fit that into. I'm being a little bit careful again with the pine because it can break out quite easily. So we're just defining that little area there. I mean, believe me, pine's probably not the best thing to make a finial out of for a lot of longevity, but this has only got to last like tonight. If you're wondering why, if you were watching earlier on, you can see that Martin's moving the studio into the classroom. And he keeps coming out with loads of reasons why it's going to be better, but really it's because it's next to the fire. Okay.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
That fire is lovely this time of year.
So my job is to make as many shavings as possible to keep Martin warm. See, aren't I a nice person?
I don't like it when your work goes quiet for a day or two. We get cold.
Get cold, yeah. We have to start burning wood. Right. So we've now got that fitting. We now can then start taking away some of our finial. And once again, I don't want to make it too thin on this bit. I don't want to make it too thin up here, then try and go back. So I am going to work it. And I'm going to keep it fairly simple. And like I said, I do have the option to remount off this bit here if I want to, but I'm going to try and do it all from one fixing. Basically, it depends on how well it works, or how well it shapes and how well it parts off. So we're not quite there yet. Now, one thing about that little shoulder there, from a design point of view, in my world, it either needs to be flush or it needs to be big enough to make it look, that shoulder needs to be big enough to make it look like you did it on purpose. What you don't want to do is sort of go a tiny little ridge there, because then that looks like it's a mistake. So we're going to go down there. So we've got to try and get that to fit. See, that to me looks like it's a mistake. Okay, so I'm going to do one more cut there. So you've got one chance for doing this. Okay, luckily I seem to have got away with it. Those of you who've been watching since the beginning see that I had my little dig in. I had my dig in for this year, so I'm not allowed another one. Okay. So we're going to create a shape that's going to mirror our base. Okay. So we're just going to create a flame finial there. Okay. So I'm just sizing it at the moment, trying to get the balance right. Okay, it might be a bit tall. So because it's going to be a bit tall, we're going to go a little bit narrower here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the lathe, I'm going to move the tourist in. Now you notice, through my demo today, I hope some of you notice how much I do move the tourist with the lathe running. Okay, whenever I move the tourist with the lathe running, in my world it's always a risk assessment. So basically, if I feel like I'm safe doing it, I'm happy to do it. But when I'm doing something like this, of course, when I'm working this, especially near the end of a project, even I'm going to stop it to make sure that I get it right. So what I've got to do now is I want to work this way. I don't want to have to do it narrow here and then come back up to there. So we are going to try and work it down in stages. So we're going to nice small fillet. Okay, so that sort of matches the base. You notice I've gone to, oh, you can't see that, I've gone to a finger and thumb grip now, which I don't often use. Okay, so I've gone to a grip like this, and the reason for that is because if I use a hand over grip, my preferred grip, it's too close to that edge there. So by going to a finger and thumb, it means that everything is kept out of the way. There, flowing it round. This is the detail, the small detail gouge. Okay, so in there, and then the carrying on the flame. So you can see the shape I'm trying to achieve. Now, I want to go narrower here. Okay, so I'm going to take almost like a little test cut. There we go, it did work. What would have happened there is if it had vibrated, I wouldn't have risked it. But because I was able to do it, because I made the cut and it allowed me to do it, everything was good. So, as Martin said, Martin's up at Harrogate. I'm actually one of the demonstrators up at Harrogate as well. So by all means come and buy me a coffee. Luckily for me, I always tend to get an audience because they put seats in front of me. So what everybody does is they come and fall asleep. So that's always quite good. So we're going to carry on down there. Once again. Okay. It's tiny. How thick is it? It's about, what, this stem here?
No, where it's attached.
What, there? It's a 5 or 6 mil. Okay, so it's still quite enough material there. I've got a little bit of a flat there that I want to sort of there you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and part it off to a point. But if it does break out, I do have the option to be able to reverse mount it. Now, I'm not quite sure whether that's too big a... You're not supposed to look. I'm going to hide this bit. There we go. See, these cameras aren't that good, are they? Can't see through my hand. I think it's actually okay. So, what I could do now, if there was a... Oh,
Just while you're doing that bit there, working out the size of it and stuff, Dewey asked a little while ago, how are you working out the height of the finial?
by experience.
Would you like to go? Are you literally just going, yeah, that'll do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go, Derek. Yeah, that'll do. Is the right size.
I've made enough, Jury, I've made enough of these to sort of know that if I start off with this size blank, it's going to make a finial that's going to be about the right height, a single finial for this particular piece. The problem about working with rules, and I've got to be a little bit careful now because Martin likes a rule.
I do.
Martin
Are there any rules you're following? The rule of thirds, the golden ratio.
Yeah, because Martin, the problem about having rules is that a lot of people when they're learning to turn are going to have to experience design changes. So they're going to have to experience a thing that when they can't make it a third of something because of a dig-in, because of a catch, because of the fault in the wood, something like that, you then are a bit stuffed to try and make it. I turn enough work that's designed by computer, designed by other people, designed from 200 years ago, you know, that basically you develop a flow for it. So it's just that classic thing. It's a feel thing where it sort of tends to look. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Actually, I think this one's worked a little bit better than they normally do. I thought at one point that this was going to be too fat, but having just offered it up where you couldn't see, it actually works quite well. So I think the other thing I think, of course, is I spend my whole life working to plans. So it's actually quite nice in demos to see how much I've got, how much natural design I've got in me to do this. It was really quite interesting about wood turning because I could never draw when I was a kid, okay, but wood turning I can draw shapes now because I can turn them. So I can draw this piece and I can actually draw, you know, shape wise, and I can actually draw it quite well. So it was sort of, I learned to draw these shapes after learning to turn them, which is a bizarre thing. And I only know that I'm drawing because I'm a terrible doodler. Right. Okay, so let's go in there. So I'm just supporting it as I run in. Okay, so now we're down to sort of 3mm up there, top there. You can see it's quite wobbly, and we're not going to take it to a point. We're just going to close the flute of the tool as we come round, and it should just fall off into our hand, like so. It has just broken out a tiny bit on the top. Okay, let's just see what it looks like. Yeah, it needs returning. So it didn't quite work, it just broke out a little bit early on me, which it's likely to do, so we're going to try and remount this. Okay, so this is like your little added bonus for the demo. Okay, so I'm going to remount this in there, he says, which is always a bit risky. But sometimes you just got to go for it. Now it only needs a very small amount done to it. It only needs a very small amount done to it. The benefit of the, as I said earlier on, the benefit of a female jam chuck like this one is I can actually be, you know, I can try and get it in there really tight, which I failed with on the first one, of course. Okay, I'm getting in there really tight, so you know I want it a proper squeaky fit in there. So I'm going to take my time. I don't want to break it at this point. So I hope you've been saving all your money for the Harrogate show coming up. It is the, you know, the biggest show of the year. It's also my 21st appearance there. Obviously I was incredibly young the first time I went. Right. After going quite full on the first one, I'm a bit trying to be a bit careful with this one. Okay, we're nearly there. I did say that about 5 cuts ago, to be fair. Oh, that felt like too big a cut. Might be getting some paper out in a minute. Oh, we knew we were going to do that, didn't we? Right, so that's... Right, so hopefully that might stay in there. So I need some masking tape. Martin's only got really posh masking tape. Ah, no, he's got this, yeah. So we've got this, this is the posh stuff. This is the Indasa masking tape, which is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, that's the expensive stuff. It's really good.
It is really, really good. When I started using this Indasa masking tape, I realised how much of my life I've wasted trying to find the ends of cheap masking tape. Right. So that that seems like a lot of effort to get this tiny little bit done on the end, but it was a necessity. Obviously bevel rubbing cut. Ah, no, it's come off. It's not going to work. Okay, we're going to put a pair on the top at this rate. We might have to change our plan. No, it's not going to come up. Too much leverage on the end to do that, which I thought it would be. So we're going to do our little, very much a little cheaty thing now. Okay. Hopefully that was the... So I'm going to do something now that I don't normally recommend. Okay. But it just goes to show how we're doing this. You can tell it's live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap, you'll see I'm going to wrap a bit of masking tape around there. Because of the one-way chucks have binds in, I should be able to grip on the metal. Now the problem about gripping with the metal like this is if I now knock it out, I've basically broken it. Okay. So I'm going to slow the lathe down a bit. Just running a little bit out. So I'm using my finger behind the work just to support that. You can go to a sharp point. Oh, I like those cameras. They're good, aren't they?
Yeah. So if it goes wrong, it's in super close up.
So what you've seen there is you've seen me just trying to do it. There you go. That's quite sharp, that bit there. Just pop that bit off. Okay. Right, so we can pop that out of there. So that is probably the way I would do it in the workshop. I tend not to show people that because it is that thing that, if, as you saw, when I knocked it out of true off the jam chuck, it didn't damage it. If I'd have knocked it out of true out of the scroll chuck, it would have absolutely buggered it. Okay, so in effect here now we have our piece. Put it on top there. Ah, here you go. It actually looks better in real. Yeah, the all cameras squash them up a little bit. It is actually slightly better proportion, Dewey, than it looks. In real life, it is better. Yeah, it just looks a little bit squat in the body, but it's not. Believe me. Okay, so you can see I've continued the curve up through there. That fillet's too big on the bird beak's too big on the bottom there, but basically. Martin likes that because it's such blatant product placement, that, isn't it? Hold on, Martin. You need to
I was
get
gonna say,
that
the
one a
labels
bit
are
more
pointing in
there.
the wrong
Yeah,
direction.
see, there we go. That's better. That's much better. There we go.
But you haven't put a finish on it.
I haven't put a finish
Your
on
finish
it.
off the tool is so good, you haven't needed
It is.
any finish at all.
It's so shiny and so rubbed and so glossy, it's visible from space.
There we go. Right, last chance to ask any questions. Oh, there was one from Spunby Green Jeans. What is the included angle on the multipurpose tool?
From who?
Spunby Green Jeans. I love these YouTube names.
The included angle now. Right. So what? I ought to know this because I had an engineering background because I was a saw doctor. But the included angle. So basically, each of those faces, when I sharpen them, is 25 degrees. So that is 25 degrees. So if you go half the tool, is it? Yeah, it is, isn't it? No, it's 25 degrees off that flat there,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. It's 25 degrees off that flat
Back a bit. There.
Okay.
Yeah, 25 degrees on each side.
So that's that. So your platform should be set onto, but I'd say that a lot of people get on better with 30. Okay. Now you notice that my tools, they should be ground straight across. They're not always, because I tend not to bother. I tend to just sharpen them, and if they're a couple of degrees out, it's not an issue. But I tend to sharpen them straight across because then it gives me ability to be able to use them as a peeling cut and stuff like that. So I aim to get them straight across, but not always. You notice on my spindle gouge, on the big spindle gouge, I do take the heel off. Okay, so all I do when I sharpen it, I do take the heel off. Okay, whether you need to or not is another matter. I just tend to do it through force of habit. It takes seconds to take the heel off when you run through there. I don't bother taking the heel off on the small one because the small one already has a small enough bevel anyway. So I don't take the heel off because it will just make that cutting edge a bit weaker. Limitations of the smaller one compared to a normal 3/8 spindle gouge, it's not so good for hollowing because it is a little bit weaker, because remember these tools have been ground in at the sides. Okay, so if you look on that, and you can see once again on that picture the tool has been ground in at the side. If you look down the side there, hold on, go to there, you see that area there is a smaller diameter than the area down at the bottom. Okay. So tools are available from the website. If not, come and see me at Harrogate where I have some stock. Okay. I have to say thank you to Martin for his camera work and all his close-ups to make sure that I was doing the tooling properly.
Sorry, I'm just typing.
Ah, he's typing. Are there any questions? Oh, Martin, I will see you at West Sussex Woodturners on Sunday. Those of you who want to see me live, I'm doing West Sussex at Storrington. I'm sure they take guests on Sunday, all-day demo on Sunday.
Cool. Well, there will be probably 10 seconds delay between what we say and them hearing it, and a couple of seconds on any chat. So if there are any questions rather that you would like to ask Les, now really is your last chance. Otherwise you will have to wait until either West Sussex on Sunday or the Harrogate show. Terry's just asked, have you tried an even sharper angle on the multi-purpose tool?
Yeah, it becomes less difficult, less easy to use the skew chisel. It becomes a bit slicey. Okay, it's almost unnecessary. Okay, we're working. One reason why we do have to go soon is I have, as you can tell, I've been breathing in for the last 2 hours. I do need to exhale in a minute. Is that the right word? Exhale? Exhale. Exhale.
Not expire.
Exhale. Exhale. Yeah, I will if I don't breathe out soon. I will do.
Brilliant. Right, if there are no other questions, we'll say thank you ever so much indeed for tuning in. I'll be back probably next week, unless we're moving the lathe, which I don't think we will be. So I will be back next week. So thank you to Les for taking over the workshop tonight. Do check out his website. It's the prices there do include UK shipping. And yeah, you can pick them up there, or you can pick them up at Harrogate. So, oh, hang on, there was another question. Do you ever do demos up north?
Well, I'm going to Harrogate. I'm going to Scotland next year.
Yep.
Yeah, I used to do all the demos up north. But the trouble is nowadays that the cost of travelling is becoming quite prohibitive for some of the woodturning clubs. So gone the days that I do sort of border woodturners and Wearside and even the Yorkshire clubs. It's quite expensive now. So yeah, I mean, of course, I'm happy to go anywhere, but it does become cost prohibitive at a point for you guys to do it. So this is where these type of events have gained. But like I said, Harrogate's pretty north for me. Actually, saying that, 4 Marks is where I am now, is 6 miles north of my house, so that's far enough.
It is. Simon's just asked, do you have any plans to design a bowl gouge?
Yes, Martin and I had a little joke a little while ago about, I think I ought to change my name to Les Thorne Procrastinating Woodturner, because I've been meaning to do it for about 10 years. But the trouble is, what happens is every time I think I'm gonna sit down, design it, and do things like that, somebody brings a load of big, great pile of wood to make round. So yes, there is some. What I don't want to do really is just do a bowl gouge with a different grind on it. That's not really how I want to. That's how I want to promote my tools. But there is something in the pipeline. Okay, but saying that, there has been for about 10 years.
Well, certainly for as long as I've known you. Cool. Right, I think we. Hang on. Right. Yes, I think we are going to. I think we're going to leave it there for tonight. Thank you ever so much for joining us tonight, everybody. I'll see you next week. Les will see West Sussex Turners on Sunday, and of course, any of you who are going to Harrogate, we will see you there.
Perfect. So, and breathe out.
And relax. Thanks very much, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Bye bye.
Cheers, Em.
Bye now. soon.